Hi, we're going to do a little review of gates. And before I do that, I just want to touch base on converting a binary number to a decimal number. If you recall, when we have a binary number of 0000, we can convert that by adding any of these together that are actually high. In this case, none of the binary numbers are high or 1, and so we can't add any of those together. So this binary number represents 0. Next door here we have 0001. The last digit or the least significant digit is a high, so we would be able to add that, and these other ones are not high, so we don't add that in. So this binary number represents 1 in decimal. Here we have 0010. Only this second digit is high, so it represents 2 in decimal. And in this last example, we have 0011. Both of these are high, so the 2 and the 1 are added together, and we end up with 3. And this is going to come into play when we organize our truth tables. That's why I wanted to review that. Let's have a look at these couple of gates first. We're going to talk about AND gates, OR gates, and NOT gates, NAND gates, NOR gates today as a reminder. And we'll just start with the AND gate and the OR gate. So what gates are solid state switches. They're super fast. They don't have any mechanical disadvantage in that they don't break the same as a mechanical switch. So the maintenance is very low on them. And they're really, really fast, which is a big advantage. So an AND gate, this is the symbol for it. And what AND means is that both A and B inputs have to be high in order for Y to be high. We look at the ladder logic or the mechanical symbol for that. Think about maybe a big saw blade, and you want the switch to be on, and you also want the foot pedal switch to be on to make it safer to operate. So you have two switches in series. If both of those switches are closed, my coil would be energized, my contact would close, and the saw blade would turn. It's the same with an AND gate, a digital AND gate, in that both A and B have to be high in order for Y to be energized. Down here we have what's called the Boolean equation. This is so that everybody knows what you're talking about. You could actually put this into a keyboard and everybody would understand you're talking about an AND gate. So A, the little dot means AND, B equals Y. So if A is high and B is high, then Y would be high or on. We use what we call as truth tables to help to visualize that as well. So it might be a little bit hard to see. I have an A gate here, or an A input, a B input, and my Y here. So I've arranged my truth table so that it counts in decimal. So 00 is 0, 01 is 1, 10 is 2, 11 is 3. And we organize our truth tables, excuse me, so that they always look the same, no matter whose truth table you're looking at. It always be organized in a count. And here it shows me if A is low and B is low, I'd have a low at the Y. If A is low but B is high, I'd still have a low. If A is high and B is low, I'd still have a low. Only if A and B are both high, do I end up with a high. Going over to the ladder logic or the mechanical. So if just A is pressed, we would not end up with an output at Y. If just B was pressed, we would not have an output high at Y. A and B have to be pressed before my coil is energized and my Y goes high. This is a waveform. So this is a timing diagram, it's called. So down here is a low and up here is a high. So we start off with A being low and B being low and Y is low. Here, B goes high, so A is still low, B goes high, Y is still going to be low. Here, A is high, B is low, we're still low. It's only when A and B are high, Y will go high. When we look at diode logic, we end up with, if both diodes were energized, then we would end up with our low, so our high moving down across this resistor, and our Y would go high. Transistor to transistor logic, the two transistors are in series, and so we know that we need a current flow through the base in order to get a current flow up through the emitter to collector. So in this case, we would have to have a high at B because we have a low here, and we'd have to have a high here at A, and that way we'd have current flow from emitter to base on both of those, and that way we could go our high, our +5 would then move down to here, and our Y would be high. Right now, our Y is low because if if this was 0 or this was 0, our Y would be sitting at the same potential as down here. So only if both of these go high, that 5 volts is then kind of transitioned across the resistor and the Y goes high. Let's look at the OR gate. So the OR gate, slightly different symbol, and what happens is if A or B is high, Y will go high. Now the Boolean language for that is A, and this is awkward because the plus sign normally in our society means and, but for Boolean language it means or, and the dot means and, so that's a significant piece to remember. So A or B going high will cause Y to go high. In the truth table, again, the truth table is arranged the same way, 0, 1, 2, 3. And if A and B are both low, our output is at Y is low. If A is low and B is high, then our output would be high. If just A is high and B is low, we'd be high. And if both of them are high, we'd be high. Here in the timing diagram, if A is low, B is low, then Y will be low. If A is low, B is high, then Y will be high. And at this instant in time, if A is high, B is low, Y would be high, because we only need one or the other to be high. And if they're both high, A is high, B is high, then Y will be high. In this case, we have our diodes, and if either one of those two diodes goes high, then it moves the potential down here, and our Y goes high. Transistor to transistor logic, these two are in parallel. If either one of them goes high, then this plus volts, 5 volts, is now carried down to here, and our Y goes high. In our ladder logic, A and B are in parallel, so if A or B is closed in that mechanical switch, C would go high, energize that contact, and Y would go high. I'm just going to touch base on what would happen is if you took this AND gate and you added a third input. So let's say we added a C input into that. I've drawn a little table to show you what goes on there. So now we have 3 inputs, A, B, and C, and our output Y. You notice that we've got a lot more options here, a lot more combinations. So again, I've set this up A, B, and C. My first one is 0, then the count of 1, then the count of 2, count of 3, this is 4. Oopsie, I messed that up. We're going to go there with a 0. Did that wrong? No, I did that wrong. This was 1, 2, 3, and then this is 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 4. I had it right. Okay, so that's 1, 2, and 4. So the 4 and the 1 are added together for 5. Here we have 1, 2, and 4. So those two are added together for 6. And then all of them added together, the 1, 2, and 4 added together for 7. Now, if you look at the outputs, this was back to the AND gate, and they all have to be high. Notice that here, when we only have 1 or 2 as highs, our output always stays 0. The only time they all go high in this AND gate with 3 inputs is if all 3 inputs are high. And so we end up where we can look at figuring out how many combinations we have. So we had 3 inputs, that's your 3, 2 options, 0 or 1 for those inputs, so 2 to the power of 3, and we ended up with 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8 different combinations up here. So the number of combinations is relative to how many inputs we have on each gate. Let's take a quick look at another different type of gate. This one here is called a NOT gate. And what happens with the NOT gate is it completely inverts your signal. So if there's a high going in, this little dot here tells me that it will not be high, and the bar over top the A tells me it's not going to be high either. So A equals not A by using an inverter gate. That's all that it does. So in here, if A goes in as a low, it'll come out as a high. If A goes in as a high, it'll come out as a low. And it's always the opposite. And there's a transistor to transistor logic. Here's the mechanical gate for that. So A switch is open. So that means this coil is not energized. So right now my light is on. If I mechanically push switch A, it would energize my coil, open that set of contacts, and my light would go off. So always inverting that information. And we're going to look at the NAND and the NOR gates last here. So here we have that same dot. So it's like having an AND gate with an inverter on the end of it. And what we're going to end up seeing is that whatever goes in, that used to happen at the AND gate, will now flip the result. So it looks like this guy, an AND gate with a NOT. So what we have is if A is low, so what I like to do is, let's say A goes in as low, so it's a low inside here, and if B goes in as a low, it's a low inside there, to low inside there, but now we end up, because of the NOT gate, we end up with a high coming out. Now, if A is high and B is low, so inside here, A would go in as a high, B would go in as a low. It's an AND gate, still operates as an AND gate. So because only one of those is high, this is going to be low, but our output would be high again. Same thing with B. We go in as a low there and a high there. Think about what happens inside here. This goes in as a low, that goes in as a high. Still a low on the inside, but then that NOT flips it over and it's a high. And the last one for this 2-input NOT gate or NAND gate is both of these go in as high. So that's in as a high. That AND gate is happy. So inside there would be a high, but then because of this little dot, our output at Y is low. Our truth table would be 0, 0 would give us a high. Either one of these being high would still give us a high, and it's only when both of them go high do we get a low coming out, just like what happened here. Our Boolean equation is saying not A and B will give us Y. So we needed a low there and a low there to get a high out. And timing table works the same. I'm not going to really cover it. Let's look at the mechanical switches for it though. So A and B have to be high to energize this coil. And now that would open that and turn off the light. Right now the light would be on because there's a continuous path. It's only if the coil is energized that this would open and we would end up with a low. A NOR gate, similar idea. If we look at the two gates together, we have an OR gate with an inverter gate or a NOT gate there, and that's going to flip our result when we come out. And so typically, normally, A or B would give us a high inside there, but this NOT would flip it. Let's just look at those. So a low there and a low there would give me a low inside. And either one of those being high would normally give me a high, but I don't have a high. But then it flips it. And so with two lows going in, I end up with a high coming out. Let's see what happens if our A goes high. Normally, A going high would give us a high output on an OR gate, but because this is an OR gate, we have a high going in. Either one of those will make a high typically going out, but then it's inverted, so we end up with a low. Same thing would happen with if our B went high, just our B, and then if we look at what happens with both of them going high, so both of them go high inside here, gives us a high there, still gives us a low at Y. And the timing, the truth table would show that a low low would give us a high low high would give us a low, a high low would give us a low, two highs would give us a low. Timing table works the same. We have two lows, Y is high. We have low there, high there, we end up with a low. And the only time we end up here, we have a high, high, that gives us a low. That was the two symbols together showing us an AND gate with an inverter, which makes it A or B NOT equals Y. And with the OR gate, they're in parallel. So either A or B high would energize that coil and open that contact and send Y low. I hope that's helpful, and we'll do a little bit more another day. Thanks.